time, and at that time, in the 118th and 80th year of Yisrael going down to Mitzrayim, there went forth from Mitzrayim valiant men, 30,000 on foot from the children of Yisrael, who were all of the tribe of Joseph, of the children of Ephraim, the son of Joseph. For they said the period was completed, which Yahweh had appointed to the children of Yisrael in the times of old, which he had spoken to Abraham. And these men girded themselves, and they put each man his sword at his side, and every man his armor upon him. And they trusted to their strength, and they went out together from Mitzrayim with a mighty hand. But they brought no provisions for the road, only silver and gold, not even bread for that day did they bring in their hands, for they thought of getting their provisions for pay from the Philistine, and if not, they would take it by force. And these men were very mighty and valiant men. One man could pursue 1,000, and two could rout 10,000. So they trusted to their strength, and they went together as they were. And they directed their course towards the land of Gath. And they went down and found the shepherds of Gath feeding the cattle of the children of Gath. And they said to the shepherds, "Give us some of the sheep for pay, that we may eat, for we are hungry. For we have eaten no bread this day." And the shepherds said, "Are they our sheep or cattle, that we should give them to you even for pay?" So the children of Ephraim approached to take them by force. And the shepherds of Gath shouted over them, that their cry was heard at a distance. So all the children of Gath went out to them. And when the children of Gath saw the evil doings of the children of Ephraim, they returned and assembled the men of Gath, and they put on each man his armor, and came forth to the children of Ephraim for battle. And they engaged with them in the valley of Gath, and the battle was severe, and they smote from each other a great many on that day. And on the second day, the children of Gath sent to all the cities of Philistine, and they could come to their help, saying, "Come up unto us and help us, that we may smite the children of Ephraim, who have come forth from Mitzrayim to take our cattle and to fight against us without cause." Now the souls of the children of Ephraim were exhausted with hunger and thirst, for they had eaten no bread for 3 days. And 40,000 men went forth from the cities of Philistine to the assistance of the men of Gath. And these men were engaged in battle with their children of Ephraim, and Yahweh delivered the children of Ephraim into the hands of the Philistine. And they smote all the children of Ephraim, with all who had gone forth from Mitzrayim. None were remaining but 10 men who had run away from the engagement. For this evil was from Yahweh against the children of Ephraim, for they had transgressed the word of Yahweh on going forth from Mitzrayim, before the period had arrived which Yahweh in the days of old had appointed to Yisrael. And of the Philistine also there fell a great many, about 20,000 men, and their brethren carried them and buried them in their cities. And the slain of the children of Ephraim remained forsaken in the valley of Gath for many days and years, and were not brought to burial, and the valley was filled with the men's bones. And the men who had escaped from the battle came to Mitzrayim, and told all the children of Yisrael all that had befallen them. And their father Ephraim mourned over them for many days, and his brethren came to console him. And he came unto his woman, and she bore a son, and he called his name Beriah, for she was unfortunate in his house. And Moshe, the son of Abram, was still king in the land of Cush in those days, and he prospered in his kingdom, and he conducted the government of the children of Cush in justice and in righteousness and integrity. And all the children of Cush loved Moshe all the days that he reigned over them, and all the inhabitants of the land of Cush were greatly afraid of him. And in the 40th year of the reign of Moshe over Cush, Moshe was sitting on the royal throne, while Adoniah, the queen, was before him, and all the nobles were sitting around him. And Adoniah, the queen, said before the king and the princes, "What is this thing which you, the children of Cush, have done for this long time? Surely you know that for 40 years that this man has reigned over Cush, he has not approached me, nor has he served the Elohim of the children of Cush. Now, therefore, hear, O ye children of Cush, and let this man no more reign over you, as he is not of our flesh. Behold, Menacrus, my son, is grown up. Let him reign over you. For it is better for you to serve the Son of the Lord than to serve a stranger, slave of the king of Mitzrayim." And all the people and nobles of the children of Cush heard the words which Adoniah the queen has spoken in their ears, and all the people were preparing until the evening, and in the morning they rose up early and made Menacrus, son of Jechonias, king over them. And all the children of Cush were afraid to stretch forth their hand against Moshe, for Yahuwah was with Moshe, and the children of Cush remembered the oath which they swore unto Moshe. Therefore they did no harm to him. But the children of Cush gave many presents to Moshe and sent him from them with great honor. So Moshe went forth from the land of Cush and went home and ceased to reign over Cush. And Moshe was 66 years old when he went out of the land of Cush, for the thing was from Yahuwah. For the period had arrived which he had appointed in the days of old to bring forth Yisrael from the affliction of the children of Ham. So Moshe went to Midian, for he was afraid to return to Mitzrayim on account of Pharaoh. And he went and sat at the well of the water in Midian. And the 7 daughters of Reuel the Midianite went out to feed their father's flock, and they came to the well and drew water to water their flocks, their father's flock. So the shepherds of Midian came and drove them away, and Moshe rose up and helped them and watered the flock. And they came home to their father Reuel and told him what Moshe did for them. And they said, "A Mitzri man has delivered us from the hands of the shepherds. He drew up water for us and watered the flock." And Reuel said to his daughters, "And where is he? Wherefore have you left the man?" And Reuel sent for him and fetched him and brought him home, and he ate bread with them. And Moshe related to Reuel that he had fled from Mitzrayim, and that he reigned 40 years over Cush, and that afterwards had taken the government from him, and they sent him away in peace and honor and with presents. And Reuel had heard these words of Moshe. Reuel said within himself, "I will put this man into the prison house, whereby I shall consolate the children of Cush, for he has fled from them." And they took and put him into prison house, and Moshe was in prison 10 years. And while Moshe was in the prison house, Tisapora, the daughter of Reuel, took pity over him and supported him with bread and water all the time. And all the children of Yisrael were yet in the land of Mitzrayim, serving the Mitzrayim and all manner of hard work. And the hands of Mitzrayim continued in severity over the children of Yisrael in those days. At that time, Yahuwah smote Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim, and he afflicted with the plague of leprosy from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head, owing to the cruel treatment of the children of Yisrael. Was this plague at that time from Yahuwah upon Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim? For Yahuwah had hearkened to the prayer of his people, the children of Yisrael, and their cry reached him on account of their hard work. Still his anger did not turn from them, and the hand of Pharaoh was still stretched out against the children of Yisrael. And Pharaoh hardened his neck before Yahweh, and he increased his yoke over the children of Yisrael, and embittered their lives with all manner of hard work. And when Yahweh had inflicted the plague upon Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim, he asked his wise men and sorcerers to cure him. And his wise men and sorcerers said to him that if the blood of little children were put into the wounds, he would be healed. And Pharaoh hearkened to them and sent his ministers to Goshen to the children of Yisrael to take their little children. And Pharaoh's minister went and took the infants of the children of Yisrael from the bosoms of their mothers by force, and they brought them to Pharaoh daily, a child each day, and the physicians killed them and applied them to the plague. Thus did they all the days, and the number of children which Pharaoh slew was 375. But Yahweh hearkened not to the physicians of the king of Mitzrayim, and the plague went on increasing mightily. And Pharaoh was 10 years afflicted with that plague. Still the heart of Pharaoh was more hardened against the children of Yisrael. And at the end of 10 years, Yahweh continued to afflict Pharaoh with destructive plagues, and Yahweh smote him with a bad tumor and sickness at the stomach, and that plague turned to a severe boil. At that time, the two ministers of Pharaoh came from the land of Goshen, where all the children of Yisrael were, and went to the house of Pharaoh and said to him, "We have seen the children of Yisrael slacken in their work and neglect in their labor." And when Pharaoh heard the words of his ministers, his anger was kindled against the children of Yisrael exceedingly, for he was greatly grieved at his bodily plan. And he answered and said, "Now that the children of Yisrael know that I am ill, they'll turn and scoff at us. And now, therefore, harness my chariot for me, and I will betake myself to Goshen, and I will see the scoff of the children of Yisrael with which they are deriding me." So his servants harnessed the chariot for him, and they took and made him ride upon a horse, for he was not able to ride of himself. And he took with him 10 horsemen and 10 footmen, and went to the children of Yisrael to Goshen. And when they had come to the border of Mitzrayim, the king's horse passed into a narrow place elevated on the hollow part of the vineyard, fenced on both sides, and the low, plain country being on the other side. And the horses ran rapidly in that place and pressed each other, and the other horses pressed the king's horse. And the horses and the king's horse fell into a low plain while the king was riding upon it. And when it fell, the chariot turned over the king's face, and the horse lay upon the king. And the king cried out, for his flesh was very sore. And the flesh of the king was torn from him, and his bones were broken, and he could not ride. For this thing was from Yahweh to him. For Yahweh had heard the cries of his people, and the children of Yisrael, and their affliction. And his servants carried him upon their shoulders a little time, and they brought him back to Mitzrayim. And the horsemen who were with him came also back to Mitzrayim, and they placed him in his bed, and the king knew that his end was come to die. So Aparanath the king, his woman, came and cried before the king, and the king wept a great weeping with her. And all his nobles and servants came on that day, and saw the king in that affliction, and wept a great weeping with him. And the princes of the king and all his counselors advised the king to cause one to reign in his stead in the land, whomsoever he should choose from his sons. And the king had 3 sons and 2 daughters, which Aparanth the queen, his woman, had borne to him, beside the king's children of concubines. And these were the names: the firstborn, Othri; the second, Adikam; and the third Morion, and their sisters, and the name of the elder Bathia, and the other Akuzi. Athi, the firstborn of the king, was an idiot, precipitated to hurry in his words. But Adakim was cunning and wise man, and knowing all the wisdom of Mitzrayim, but of unseemly aspect, thick in flesh, and very short in stature. His height was 1 cubit. And when the king saw Adikam, his son, intelligent and wise in all things, the king resolved that he should be king in his stead after his death. And he took for him a woman, Gerudah, daughter of Abilat, and he was 10 years old, and she bore him 4 sons. And he afterward went and took 3 women, and begot 8 sons and 3 daughters. And the disorder greatly prevailed over the king, and his flesh stank like the flesh of carcass cast upon the field in summertime, during the heat of the sun. And when the king saw that his sickness had greatly strengthened itself over him, he ordered his son Adikam to be brought unto him, and they made him king over the land in his place. And at the end of 3 years the king died in shame, disgrace, and disgust, and his servants carried him and buried him in the sepulchre of the kings of Mitzrayim and Tasoan Mitzrayim. But they embalmed him not, as he was unusual with kings, for his flesh was putrid, and they could not approach to embalm him on that account of the stench. So they buried him in haste. For this evil was from Yahweh to him, for Yahweh had requited him evil for the evil which in his days he had done to Yisrael. And he died with terror and with shame, and his son Adikam reigned in his place. Adikam was 20 years old when he reigned over Mitzrayim. He reigned 4 years, and in the 206th year of Yasrael's going down to Mitzrayim did Adikam reign over Mitzrayim, but he continued not so long in his reign over Mitzrayim as his fathers had continued their reigns. For Melol, his father, reigned 94 years in Mitzrayim, but he was 10 years sick and died, for he had been wicked before Yahweh. And all the Mitzrayim called the name of Adikam Pharaoh, like the name of his fathers, as was their custom to do in Mitzrayim. And all the wise men of Pharaoh called the name of Adikim Ahuz, for short is called Ahuz in the Mitzrayim language. And Adikim was exceedingly ugly, and he was a cubit and a span, and had a great beard which reached to the soles of his feet. And Pharaoh sat upon his father's throne to reign over Mitzrayim, and he conducted the government of Mitzrayim in his wisdom. And while he reigned, he exceeded his father and all the preceding kings in wickedness. And he increased his yoke over the children of Yisrael. And he went with his servants to Goshen and to the children of Yisrael, and he strengthened the labor over them. And he said to them, complete your work, each day's task, and let not your hand slacken from your work from this day forward, as you did in the days of my father. And he placed officers over them from amongst the children of Yisrael. And over these officers he placed taskmasters from amongst his servants. And he placed over them a measure of bricks for them to do according to the number, day by day. And he turned back and went to Mitzrayim. At that time, the taskmasters of Pharaoh ordered the officers of the children of Yisrael according to the command of Pharaoh, saying, thus says Pharaoh, do your work each day, and finish your task, and observe the daily measure of bricks, diminish not anything. And it shall come to pass that if you are deficient in your daily bricks, I will put your young children in their stead. And the taskmasters of Mitzrayim did so in those days as Pharaoh had ordered them. And whenever any deficiency was found in the children of Yasrael's measure of their daily bricks, the taskmasters of Pharaoh would go to the women of the children of Yasrael and take infants of the children of Yasrael to the number of bricks deficient. And they would take them by force from their mothers' laps and put them in the building instead of the bricks, while their fathers and mothers were crying over them and weeping when they heard the weeping voices of their infants in the walls of the building. And the taskmasters prevailed over Yasrael that the Yasraelim should place their children in the building, so that a man placed his son in a wall and put mortar over him, while his eyes wept over him and his tears ran down upon his child. And the taskmasters of Mitzrayim did so to the babes of Yasrael for many days, and no one pitied or had compassion over the babes of the children of Yasrael. And the number of all the children killed in the building was 270, some whom they had built upon instead of the bricks which had been left deficient by their fathers, and some whom had drawn out dead from the building. And the laborer imposed upon the children of Yasrael in the days of Anakim, exceeding in hardship that which they performed in the days of his father. And the children of Yasrael sighed every day on account of their heavy work, for they had said to themselves, Behold, when Pharaoh shall die, his son will rise up and lighten our work. But they increased the latter work more than the former. And the children of Yasrael sighed at this, and their cry ascended to Elohim on account of their labor. And Elohim heard the voice of the children of Yasrael and their cry. And those days Elohim remembered to them his covenant, which he had made with Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And Elohim saw the burden of the children of Yasrael and their heavy work in those days, and he determined to deliver them. And Moshe, the son of Amram, was still confined in the dungeon in those days in the house of Reuel the Midianite, and Tisapora, the daughter of Reuel, did support him with food secretly, day by day. And Moshe was confined in the dungeon in the house of Reuel for 10 years. And at the end of 10 years, which was the first year of the reign of Pharaoh over Mitzrayim, in the place of his father, Tisapora said to her father Reuel, No person injuries seek after every man whom you did bind in prison now for 10 years. Now, therefore, if it seems good in your sight, let us send and see whether he is living or dead. But her father knew not that she had supported him, and Reuel her father answered and said to her, Has ever such a thing happened, that a man should be shut up in prison without food for 10 years, and that he should live? And Tessapora answered her father, saying, Surely you have heard that the Elohim of Ephraim is great and awful, and does wonders for them at all times. He it was who delivered Abraham from of the Keshdim, and Yitzchak from the sword of his father, and Yaakov from the angel of Yahweh who wrestled with him at the ford of Yabag. Also, with this man has he done many things. He delivered him from the river of Mitzrayim, and from the sword of Pharaoh, and from the children of Cush. So also can he deliver him from famine, and make him live. And the thing seemed good in the sight of Reuel, and he did according to the word of his daughter, and sent to the dungeon to ascertain what became of Moshe. And he saw, and behold, the man Moshe was living in the dungeon, standing upon his feet, praising and praying to Elohim of his ancestors. And Reuel commanded Moshe to be brought out of the dungeon. So they saved him and changed his prison garment and ate bread. And afterwards Moshe went to the garden of Reuel, which was behind the house, and he there prayed unto Yahweh Eloheinu, who had done mighty wonders for him. And it was that while he prayed, he looked opposite to him, and behold, a sapphire stick was placed in the ground, which was planted in the midst of the garden. And he approached the stick, and he looked, and behold, the name of Yahweh Elohim, Tesavaos, was engraved therein, written and developed upon the stick. And he read it, and stretched forth his hand, and he plucked it like a forest tree from the thicket, and the stick was in his hand. And this is the stick with which all works of Elohim were performed, after he had created heaven and earth and all the host of them, seas, rivers, and all their flesh. And when Elohim had driven Adam from the Garden of Eden, he took the stick in his hand and went and tilled the ground from which he was taken. And the stick came down to Noah, and he was given to Shem and his descendants until it came into the hand of Abraham the Abari. And when Abraham had given all he had to his son Yitzchak, he also gave to him this stick. And when Yaakov had fled to Padan Aram, he took it into his hand, and when he returned to his father, he had not left it behind him. Also, when he went down to Mitzrayim, he took it into his hand and gave it to Yosef, one portion above his brethren, for Yaakov had taken it by force from his brother Esau. And after the death of Yosef, the nobles of Mitzrayim came into the house of Yosef, and the stick came into the hand of Reuel the Midianite. And when he went out of Mitzrayim, he took it in his hand and planted it in his garden. And all the mighty men of Canaanim tried to pluck it when they endeavored to get Tessapora, his daughter, but they were unsuccessful. So that stick remained planted in the garden of Reuel until it came to who had a right to it and took it. And Reuel saw the stick in the hand of Moshe. He wondered at it, and he gave him his daughter Tessapora for a woman. At that time died Baal, Canaan, son of Kabor, king of Edom, and was buried in his house in the land of Edom. And after his death, the children of Esau sent to the land of Edom, and took from there a man who was in Edom, whose name was Hadad. And they made him king over them in the place of Baal Hanan, their king, and Hadad reigned over the children of Edom 48 years. And when he reigned, he resolved to fight against the children of Moab, to bring them under the power of the children of Esau, as they were before. But he was not able, because the children of Moab heard these things, and they rose up and hastened to elect a king over them from amongst their brethren. And they afterward gathered together a great people, and sent to the children of Ammon, their brethren, for help to fight against Hadad, king of Edom. And Hadad heard the thing which the children of Moab had done, and was greatly afraid of them, and refrained from fighting against them. In those days Moshe, the son of Amram, in the Midian, took Tessapora, the daughter of Reuel, the Midianite, for a woman. And Tessapora walked in the ways of the daughters of Yaakov. She was nothing short of righteousness of Sarah, Rivkah, Rachel, and Leah. And Tessapora conceived and bore a son, and he called his name Gershom, for he had said, I was a stranger in a foreign land. But he circumcised not his foreskin at the command of Reuel his father-in-law. And she conceived again and bore a son, but circumcised his foreskin and called his name Eleazar. For Moshe said, because Elohim of my fathers was my help and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. And Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim, greatly increased the labor of the children of Yisrael in those days, and continued to make his yoke heavier upon the children of Yisrael. And he ordered a proclamation to be made in Mitzrayim, saying, Give no more straw to the people to make bricks with. Let them go and gather themselves straw, as they can find it. Also the tell of the bricks, which they shall make, let them give each day, and diminish nothing from them, for they are idle in their work. And the children of Yisrael heard this, and they mourned and sighed, and they cried unto Yahweh on the account of the bitterness of their souls. And Yahweh heard the cries of the children of Yisrael, and saw the oppression with which the Mitzrayim oppressed them. And Yahweh was jealous of his people and his inheritance, and heard their voice, and he resolved to take them out of the affliction of Mitzrayim, to give them the land of Canaan for a possession. And in those days Moshe was feeding the flock of Reuel, the Midianite, his father-in-law, beyond the wilderness of Sion, and the stick which he took from his father-in-law was in his hand. And it came to pass one day that a kid of goats strayed from the flock, and Moshe pursued it, and it came to the mountain of Elohim, to Korev. And when he came to Korev, Yahweh appeared there unto him in a thorn bush, and he found the thorn bush burning with fire, but the fire had no power over the thorn bush to consume it. And Moshe was greatly astonished at this sight, wherefore the thorn bush was not consumed. And he approached to see this mighty thing. And Yahweh called unto Moshe out of the fire, and commanded him to go down to Mitzrayim, to Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim, to send the children of Yisrael from his servants. And Yahweh said to Moshe, Go, return to Mitzrayim, for all those men who sought your life are dead. And you shall speak unto Pharaoh to send forth the children of Yisrael from this land. And Yahweh showed them to do signs and wonders in Mitzrayim before the eyes of Pharaoh and the eyes of his subjects, in order that they might believe that Yahweh had sent him. And Moshe hearkened to all that Yahweh had commanded him, and he returned to his father-in-law and told him the thing that Reuel said to him, Go in peace. And Moshe rose up to go to Mitzrayim, and he took his woman and sons with him, and he was at an inn in the road. And the angel of Elohim came down and sought an occasion against him. And he wished to kill him on account of his firstborn son, because he had not circumcised him, and had transgressed the covenant which Yahweh had made with Abraham. For Moshe had hearkened to the words of his father-in-law, which he had spoken to him, not to circumcise his firstborn son. Therefore he circumcised him not. And Tessapora saw the angel of Yahweh seeking an occasion against Moshe, and she knew that this thing was owing to his not having circumcised her son Gershom. And Tessapora hastened and took of the sharp rock stones that were there, and she circumcised her son, and delivered her man and her son from the hand of the angel of Yahweh. And Aharon, the son of Amram, the brother of Moshe, was in Mitzrayim, walking at the riverside on that day. And Yahuwah appeared before him in that place, and he said to him, Go now towards Moshe in the wilderness. And he went and met him in the mountain of Elohim, and he kissed him. And Aharon lifted up his eyes and saw Tessapora, the woman of Moshe, and her children. And he said to Moshe, Who are these unto you? And Moshe said unto him, They are my woman and sons, which Elohim gave me in Midian. And the things grieved Aharon on the count of the woman and her children. And Aharon said to Moshe, Send away the woman and her children, that they may go to their father's house. And Moshe hearkened to the words of Aharon, and did so. And Tessapora returned with her children, and they went to the house of Reuel, and remained there until the time arrived when Yahweh had visited his people, and brought them forth from Mitzrayim, from the hand of Pharaoh. And Moshe and Aharon came to Mitzrayim, to the community of the children of Yisrael, and they spoke to them all the words of Yahweh, and the people rejoiced, and exceedingly great rejoicing. And Moshe and Aharon rose up early on the next day, and they went to the house of Pharaoh, and they took in their hands the stick of Elohim. And when they came to the king's gate, two young lions were confined there with iron instruments, and no person went out or came in from before them, unless those whom the king ordered to come. When the conjurers came and withdrew the lions by their incantations, and thus brought them to the king. And Moshe hastened and lifted up the stick upon the lions, and he loosened them. And Moshe and Aharon came into the house, into the king's house. And the lions also came with them in joy, and they followed them and rejoiced as a dog rejoices over his master when he comes from the field. And when Pharaoh saw these things, he was astonished at it, and he was greatly terrified at the report, for their appearance was like the appearance of the children of Elohim. And the Pharaoh said to Moshe, "What do you require?" And they answered him, saying, "Yahweh Elohim of the Avarim has sent us to you to say, Send forth my people, that they may serve me." And when Pharaoh heard their words, he was greatly terrified before them. And he said to them, "Go today and come back to me tomorrow." And they did according to the word of the king. And when they had gone, Pharaoh sent Balaam the magician to the Ionis and Lambris his sons, and to all the magicians and conjurers and counselors which belonged to the king. And they all came and sat before the king. And the king told them all the words which Moshe and his brother Aharon had spoken to them. And the magician said to the king, "But how came the men to you on account of the lions which were confined at the gate?" And the king said, "Because they lifted up their rod against the lions and loosed them and came to me. And the lions also rejoiced at them as a dog rejoices to meet his master." And Balaam, the son of Beor, the magician, answered the king, saying, "These are none else than magicians like ourselves. Now therefore send for them, and let them come, and we will try them." And the king did so. And in the morning Pharaoh sent for Moshe and Aharon to come before the king. And they took the rod of Elohim, and came to the king, and spoke to him, saying, "Thus says Yahweh Elohim of the Avarim, Send my people, that they may serve me." And the king said to them, "But who will believe you that you are the messenger of Elohim, and that you come to me by this order? Now therefore give a wonder or sign in this manner, and then the words which you speak will be believed." And Aharon hastened and threw the rod out of his hand before Pharaoh and before his servants, and the rod turned into the serpent. And the sorcerers saw this, and they cast each man his rod upon the ground, and they became serpents. And the serpents of Aharon's rod lifted up its head and opened its mouth to swallow the rods of the magicians. And Balaam the magician answered and said, "This thing has been from the days of old, that a serpent should swallow its fellow, and that living things devour each other. Now, therefore, restore it to a rod as it was at first, and we will also restore our rods as they were at first. And if your rod shall swallow our rods, then shall we know that the Ruach Elohim is in you. And if not, you are only an artificer like unto ourselves." And Aharon hastened and stretched forth his hand and caught hold of the serpent's tail, and it became a rod in his hand. And the sorcerer did the like with their rods, and they got hold, each man of the tail of his serpent, and they became rods as the first. And when they were restored to rods, the rod of Aharon swallowed up their rods. And when the king saw this thing, he ordered the cipher of records that related to the kings of Mitzrayim to be brought. and they brought the cipher of records, the chronicles of the king of Mitzrayim, in which all the idols of Mitzrayim were inscribed, for they thought of finding therein the names of Yahweh, but they found it not. And Pharaoh said to Moshe and Aharon, Behold, I have not found the name of your Elohim written in this chapter, and his name I know not. And the counselors and wise men answered the king, We have heard that Elohim of the Ephraim is a son of the wise and the son of the ancient kings. And Pharaoh turned to Moshe and Aharon and said to them, I know not Yahweh, whom you have declared, neither will I send his people. And they answered and said to the king, Yahweh Elohim of Elohim is his name, and he proclaimed his name over us from the days of our ancestors, and sent us, saying, Go to Pharaoh and say unto him, Send my people that they may serve me. Now, therefore, send us that we may take a journey for 3 days in the wilderness, and there may sacrifice to him. For from the days of our going down to Mitzrayim, he has not taken from our hands neither burnt offering, oblation, or sacrifice. And if you will not send us, his anger will be kindled against you, and he will smite Mitzrayim, either with the plague or with the sword. And Pharaoh said to them, Tell me now his power and his might. And they said to him, He created the heavens and the earth, the seas and all the flesh. He formed the light, created the darkness, caused the rain upon the earth, and watered it, and made it herbage and grass to sprout. He created man and beast and the animals of the forest, the birds of the air, and the fish of the sea, and by his mouth they live and die. Surely he created you in your mother's womb, and he put into you the breath of life, and reared you and placed you upon the royal throne of Mitzrayim. And he will take your breath and soul from you, and return you to the ground whence you were taken. And the anger of the king was kindled at their words, and he said to them, But who amongst all the Elohim of nations can do this? My river is my own, and I have made it for myself. And he drove them from him, and he ordered the labor upon Yisrael to be more severe than it was yesterday and before. And Moshe and Aharon went out from the king's presence, and they saw the children of Yisrael in the evil condition, for the taskmaster had made their labors exceedingly heavy. And Moshe returned to Yahweh and said, Why have you ill-treated your people? For since I came to speak to Pharaoh what you did send me for, he has exceedingly ill used the children of Yisrael. And Yahweh said to Moshe, Behold, you will see that with an outstretched hand and heavy plagues, Pharaoh will send the children of Yisrael from his land. And Moshe and Aharon dwelt amongst their brethren, the children of Yisrael in Mitzrayim. And as for the children of Yisrael, the Mitzrayim embittered their lives with the heavy work which they imposed upon them. And at the end of 2 years, Yahweh again sent Moshe to Pharaoh to bring forth the children of Yisrael, and to send them out of the land of Mitzrayim. And Moshe went and came to the house of Pharaoh, and he spoke to him the words of Yahweh, who had sent him. But Pharaoh would not hearken to the voice of Yahweh, and Elohim rose his might in Mitzrayim upon Pharaoh and his subjects, and Elohim smote Pharaoh and his people with a very great and sore plagues, with all their streams and rivers. And when a Mitzrayim came to drink and draw water, he looked into his pitcher, and behold, all the water was turned to blood. And when he came to drink from his cup, the water in the cup became blood. And when a woman kneaded her dough and cooked her victuals, their appearance was turned to that of blood. And Yahweh sent again, and caused all their waters to bring forth frogs, and all the frogs came into the house of the Mitzrayim. And when the Mitzrayim drank, their bellies were filled with frogs, and they danced in their bellies as they danced when in the river. And all their drinking water and cooking water turned to frogs. Also, when they laid in their beds, their perspiration bred frogs. Notwithstanding all this, the anger of Yahweh did not turn from them, and his hand was stretched out against all the Mitzrayim to spite them with every heavy plague. And he sent and smote their dust to lice, and the lice became in Mitzrayim to the height of 2 cubits upon the earth. The lice were also very numerous in the flesh of man and beast, and all the inhabitants of Mitzrayim. Also upon the king and the queen Yahweh sent the lice, and it grieved Mitzrayim exceedingly on account of the lice. Notwithstanding this, the anger of Yahweh did not turn away, and his hand was still stretched over Mitzrayim. And Yahweh sent all kinds of beasts in the field to Mitzrayim, and they came and destroyed all Mitzrayim, man and beast, and trees, and all things that were in Mitzrayim. And Yahweh sent fiery serpents, scorpions, mice, weasel, toad, together with other creeping in the dust, flies, hornets, fleas, bugs, gnats, each swarmed according to its kind. And all the reptiles and winged animals according to their kind came to Mitzrayim, and grieved the Mitzrayim exceedingly. And the fleas and flies came into the eyes and ears of the Mitzrayim, and the hornet came upon them and drove them away, and they removed from it unto their inner rooms, and it pursued them. And when the Mitzrayim hid themselves on account of the swarms of animals, they locked their doors after them. And Elohim ordered the Salanus, which was in the sea, to come up and go into Mitzrayim. And she had long arms, 10 cubits in length, the cubit of man. And she went upon the roofs, and uncovered the rafting and flooring, and cut them, and stretched forth her arm into the house, and removed the lock and the bolt, and opened the house of Mitzrayim. Afterward came the swarm of animals into the house of Mitzrayim, and the swarm of animals destroyed the Mitzrayim, and it grieved them exceedingly. Notwithstanding this, the anger of Yahweh did not turn away from Mitzrayim, and its hand was yet stretched forth against them. And Elohim sent the pestilence, and the pestilence pervaded Mitzrayim in the horses and the asses, and in the camels, in herds of oxen, and sheep and man. And when the Mitzrayim rose up early in the morning to take their cattle to pasture, they found all their cattle dead. And there remained of cattle of the Mitzrayim only 1 in 10, and of the cattle belonging to Yisrael in Goshen not one died. And Elohim sent a burning inflammation in the flesh of Mitzrayim, which burst their skin, and it became a severe itch in all the Mitzrayim from soles of their feet to the crowns of their head. And many boils were in their flesh, that their flesh wasted away until they became rotten and putrid. Notwithstanding this, the anger of Yahweh did not turn away, and his hand was still stretched over the Mitzrayim. And Yahweh sent a very heavy hail, which smote their vines, and broke their fruit trees, and dried them up, and they fell upon them. Also, every green herb became dry and perished, for a mingling fire descended amidst the hail. Therefore, the hail and the fire consumed all things. Also, men and beasts that were found abroad perished of the flames of fire and of the hail, and of all the young lions were exhausted. And Yahweh sent and brought numerous locusts into Mitzrayim, and Chasel, Shalom, Chargol, and Charagol, locusts each of its kind, which devoured all that the hail had left remaining. Then the Mitzrayim rejoiced at the locusts, although they consumed the produce of the field, and they caught them in abundance and salted them for food. And Yahweh turned a mighty wind of the sea, which took away all the locusts, even those that were salted, and thrust them in the sea. Not one locust remained within the boundaries of Mitzrayim. And Elohim sent darkness upon Mitzrayim, that the whole land of Mitzrayim and Pathak became dark for 3 days, so that a man could not see his hand when he lifted it unto his mouth. At that time died many of the people of Yisrael who had rebelled against Yahweh, and who would not hearken to Moshe and Aharon, and believed not in them that Elohim had sent them, and who had said, We will not go forth from Mitzrayim, lest we perish with hunger in a desolate wilderness, and who would not hearken to the voice of Moshe. And Yahweh plagued them in 3 days of darkness, and Yisrael buried them in those days, without the Mitzrayim knowing of them or rejoicing over them. And the darkness was very great in Mitzrayim for 3 days, and any person who was standing when the darkness came remained standing in its place. And he that was sitting remained sitting, and he that was lying continued lying in the same state, and he that was walking remained sitting upon the ground in the same spot. And this thing happened to all the Mitzrayim until the darkness had passed away. And the days of darkness passed away, and Yahweh sent Moshe and Aharon to the children of Yisrael, saying, Celebrate your feast and make your Pesach, for behold, I come in the midst of the night amongst all the Mitzrayim, and I will smite all their firstborn, from the firstborn of a man to the firstborn of beast. And when I see your Pesach, I will pass over you. And the children of Yisrael did according to all that Yahweh had commanded Moshe and Aharon. Thus did they in that night. And it came to pass in the middle of the night that Yahweh went forth into the midst of Mitzrayim, and smote all the firstborn of Mitzrayim, from the firstborn of man to the firstborn of beast. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, and he and all the servants and all the Mitzrayim. And there was a great cry throughout Mitzrayim in that night, for there was not a house in which there was not a corpse. Also the likeliness of the firstborn of Mitzrayim, which were carved in the walls at their houses, were destroyed and fell to the ground. Even the bones of the firstborn who had died before this, and whom they had buried in their houses, were ranked up by the dogs of Mitzrayim on that night, and dragged before the Mitzrayim, and cast before them. And all the Mitzrayim saw this evil which had suddenly come upon them, and all the Mitzrayim cried out with a loud voice, and all the families of Mitzrayim wept upon that night, each man for his son, and each man for his daughter, being the firstborn. And the tumult of Mitzrayim was heard at a distance on that night. And Bathia, the daughter of Pharaoh, went forth with the king on that night to seek Moshe and Aharon in their houses. And they found them in their houses, eating and drinking and rejoicing with all Yisrael. And Bathia said to Moshe, Is this the reward for the good which I have done to you, who have reared you and stretched you out, and have brought you this evil upon me and my father's house? And Moshe said to her, Surely 10 plagues did Yahweh bring upon Mitzrayim. Did any evil accrue to you from any of them? Did one of them affect you? And she said, No. And Moshe said to her, Although you are the firstborn to your mother, you shall not die, and no evil shall reach you in the midst of Mitzrayim. And she said, What advantage is it to me when I see the king, my brother, and all his household and subject in this evil, whose firstborn perished with all the firstborn of Mitzrayim? And Moshe said to her, Surely your brother and his household and subjects, the families of Mitzrayim, would not hearken to the words of Yahweh. Therefore did this evil come upon them. And Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim, approached Moshe and Aharon, and some of the children of Yisrael, who were with them in that place, and he prayed to them, saying, Rise up and take your brethren and all the children of Yisrael who are in the land, with their sheep and oxen, and all belonging to them. They shall leave nothing remaining, only pray for me to Yahweh Elohim. And Moshe said to Pharaoh, Behold, though you are your mother's firstborn, yet fear not, for you will not die, for Yahweh has commanded that you shall live in order to show you his great might and strong stretched out arm. And Pharaoh ordered the children of Yisrael to be sent away, and all the Mitzrim strengthened themselves to send them, for they said, We are all perishing. And all the Mitzrim sent to Yisrael forth with great riches, sheep, oxen, and precious things, according to the oath of Yahweh between him and our father Abraham. And the children of Yisrael delayed going forth at night. And when the Mitzrayim came to them to bring them out, they said to them, Are we thieves that we should go forth at night? And the children of Yisrael asked the Mitzrayim vessels of silver and vessels of gold and garments. And the children of Yisrael stripped the Mitzrayim. And Moses hastened and rose up and went to the river of Mitzrayim and brought up from thence the coffin of Joseph and took it with him. And the children of Yisrael also brought up each man his father's coffin with him, and each man the coffin of his tribe. And the children of Yisrael journeyed from Ramaketh to Kakoth, about 600,000 men on foot, besides the little ones and their women. Also a mixed multitude went up with them, and flocks and herds, even much cattle. And the sojourning of the children of Yisrael, who dwelt in the land of Mitzrayim and hard labor, was 210 years. And at the end of 210 years, Yahweh brought forth the children of Yisrael from Mitzrayim with a strong hand. And the children of Yisrael traveled from Mitzrayim and from Goshen and Amakek, and encamped in Succoth on the 15th day of the first month. And the Mitzrayim buried all their firstborn whom Yahweh had smitten. And all the Mitzrayim buried their slain for 3 days. And the children of Yisrael traveled from Succoth and encamped in Etham at the end of the wilderness. And on the 3rd day, after the Mitzrayim had buried their firstborn, many men rose up from Mitzrayim and went after Yisrael to make them return to Mitzrayim. For they repented that they had sent Yisrael away from their servitude. And one man said to his neighbor, Surely Moshe and Aaron spoke to Pharaoh, saying, We will go a 3 days' journey in the wilderness and sacrifice to Yahweh Eloheinu. Now therefore, let us rise up early in the morning and cause them to return. And it shall be that if they return with us to Mitzrayim, to their masters, then shall we know that there is belief in them. But if they will not return, then we will fight with them and make them come back with great power and a strong hand. And all the nobles of Pharaoh rose up in the morning, and with them about 700,000 men. And they went forth from Mitzrayim on that day, and came to the place where the children of Yisrael were. And all the Mitzrayim saw, and behold, Moshe and Aharon and all the children of Yisrael were sitting before Pi Hahiroth, eating and drinking and celebrating the feast of Yahweh. And all the Mitzrayim said to the children of Yisrael, Surely you said, We will go a journey for 3 days in the wilderness and sacrifice to our Elohim and return. Now, therefore, this day make 5 days since you went. Why do you not return to your masters? And Moshe and Aharon answered them, saying, Because Yahweh Eloheinu has testified in us, saying, You shall no more return to Mitzrayim, but we will take ourselves to a land flowing with milk and honey, as Yahweh Eloheinu had sworn to our ancestors to give us. And when the nobles of Mitzrayim saw that the children of Yisrael did not hearken to them to return to Mitzrayim, they girded themselves to fight with Yisrael. And Yahweh strengthened the heart of the children of Yisrael over Mitzrayim, that they gave them a severe beating, and the battle was sore upon the Mitzrayim. And all the Mitzrayim fled from before the children of Yisrael, for many of them perished by the hand of Yisrael. And the nobles of Pharaoh went to Mitzrayim and told Pharaoh, saying, The children of Yisrael have fled, and will no more return to Mitzrayim. And in this manner did Moshe and Aharon speak to us. And Pharaoh heard these things in his heart, and the hearts of all his subjects were turned against Yisrael, and they repented that they had sent Yisrael, and all the Mitzrayim advised Pharaoh to pursue the children of Yisrael, to make them come back to their burdens. And they said, each man to his brother, What is this which we have done, that we have sent Yisrael from our servitude? And Yahuwah strengthened the hearts of all the Mitzrayim to pursue Yisrael, for Yahuwah desired to overthrow the Mitzrayim in the Red Sea. And Pharaoh rose up and harnessed his chariot, and he ordered all the Mitzrayim to assemble. Not one man was left, excepting the little ones and the women. And all the Mitzrayim went forth with Pharaoh to pursue the children of Yisrael. And the camp of Mitzrayim was exceedingly large and heavy camp, about 100,000 men. And the whole of this camp went and pursued the children of Yisrael to bring them back to Mitzrayim. And they reached them, encamping by the sea. And the children of Yisrael lifted up their eyes and beheld all the Mitzrayim pursuing them. And the children of Yisrael were greatly terrified at them. And the children of Yisrael cried to Yahweh. And on account of the Mitzrayim, the children of Yisrael divided themselves into 4 divisions, and they were divided in their opinions, for they were afraid of the Mitzrayim. And Moshe spoke to each of them. And the first division was of the children of Reuben, Simeon, and Issachar, and they resolved to cast themselves into the sea, for they were exceedingly afraid of the Mitzrayim. And Moshe said to them, Fear not, stand still, and see the Yeshua of Yahuwah, which he will effect this day for you. The second division was of the children of Zebulun, Benjamin, and the Naphtali, and they resolved to go back to Mitzrayim with their Mitzrim. And Moshe said to them, Fear not, for as you have seen the Mitzrayim this day, so shall you see them no more forever. The third division was of the children of Yahuwah and Joseph, and they resolved to go to meet the Mitzrayim to fight with them. And Moshe said to them, Stand in your places, for Yahuwah will fight for you, and you shall remain silent. And the fourth division was of the children of Levi, Gad, and Asher, and they resolved to go into the midst of the Mitzrayim to confront them. And Moshe said to them, Remain in your stations and fear not, only call unto Yahweh, that he may save you out of their hands. After this, Moshe rose up from the midst the people, and he prayed to Yahweh and said, O Yahweh Elohim of the whole earth, save now your people whom you did bring forth from Mitzrayim, and let not the Mitzrim boast that power and might are theirs. So Yahweh said to Moshe, Why do you cry unto me? Speak unto the children of Yisrael, that they shall proceed, and do you stretch out your rod upon the sea, and divide it, and the children of Yisrael shall pass through it. And Moshe did so, And he lifted up his rod upon the sea, and it divided it. And the waters of the sea were divided into 12 parts. And the children of Yasrael passed through on foot with shoes, as a man would pass through a prepared road. And Yahuwah manifested to the children of Yasrael his wonders in Mitzrayim and in the sea by the hand of Moshe and Aharon. And when the children of Yasrael had entered the sea, the Mitzrayim came after them, and the waters of the sea resumed upon them, and they all sank in the water, and not one man was left, excepting Pharaoh, who gave thanks to Yahuwah and believed in him. Therefore Yahuwah did not cause him to perish at that time with the Mitzrayim. And Yahuwah ordered an angel to take him from amongst the Mitzrayim, who cast him upon the land of Nineveh, and that he reigned over it for a long time. And on that day Yahuwah saved Yasrael from the hand of Mitzrayim, and all the children of Yasrael saw that the Mitzrayim had perished, and they beheld the great hand of Yahuwah in what he had performed in Mitzrayim and in the sea. Then sang Moshe and the children of Yasrael this song unto Yahuwah on the day when Yahuwah caused the Mitzrayim to fall before them. And all Yasrael sang in concert, saying, I will sing to Yahuwah, for he is greatly exalted. The horse and the rider he cast into the sea. Behold, it is written in the cipher of the Torah of Elohim. After this, the children of Yasrael proceeded on their journey and encamped in Marah, and Yahuwah gave to the children of Yasrael commandments and judgments in that place in Marah. And Yahuwah commanded the children of Yasrael to walk in all his ways and to serve him. And they journeyed from Marah and came to Elim, and Elim were 12 springs of water and 70 date trees, and the children encamped there by the waters. And they journeyed from Elim and came into the wilderness of Sion on the 15th day of the second month after the departure from Mitzrayim. At that time, Yahuwah gave the manna to the children of Yasrael to eat, and Yahuwah caused food to rain from heaven for the children of Yasrael day by day. And the children of Yasrael ate the manna for 40 years, all the days that they were in the wilderness, until they came to the land of Canaan to possess it. And they proceeded from the wilderness of Chion and encamped in Alush. And they proceeded from Alush and encamped in Rephidim. And when the children of Yasrael were in Rephidim, Amalek, the son of Eliphaz, the son of Esau, the brother of Tesopho, came to fight with Yasrael, and he brought with him 801,000 men, magicians and conjurers, and he prepared for battle with Yasrael and Rephidim. And they carried on a great and severe battle against Yasrael, and Yahuwah delivered Amalek and his people into the hands of Moshe and the children of Yasrael, and into the hands of Yahusha, the son of Nun, the Ephraimi, the servant of Moshe. And the children of Yasrael smote Amalek and his people at the edge of the sword. But the battle was very sore upon the children of Yasrael. Write this thing as a memorial for you in a cipher, and place it in the hand of Yahusha, the son of Nun, your servant, and you shall command the children of Yasrael, saying, when you shall come to the land of Canaan, you shall utterly efface the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. And Moshe did so, and he took the cipher and wrote it these words, saying, remember what Amalek has done to you in the road when you went forth from Mitzrayim. Who met you in the road and smote your rear, even those that were feeble behind you when you were faint and weary? Therefore it shall be with Yahweh Eloheka shall have given you rest from all of your enemies round about in the land which Yahuwah Eloheka gives you for an inheritance to possess it, that you shall blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. You shall not forget it. And the king who shall have pity on Amalek or upon his memory or upon his seed, behold, I will require it of him, and I will cut him off from amongst his people. And Moshe wrote all these things in a cipher, and he enjoined the children of Yisrael respecting all these matters. And the children of Yisrael proceeded from Rephidim, and they encamped in the wilderness of Sinai in the 3rd month from their going forth from Mitzrayim. At that time came Reuel, the Midianite, the father-in-law of Moshe, with Tessapora his daughter and her 2 sons, for he had heard of the wonders of Yahuwah which he had done from Yisrael, that he had delivered them from the hand of the Mitzrayim. And Reuel came and Moshe to Moshe in the wilderness where he was encamped, where was the mountain of Elohim. And Moshe went forth to meet his father-in-law with great honor, and all Yisrael was with him. And Reuel and his children remained amongst Yisrael for many days, and Reuel knew Yahuwah from that day forward. And in the 3rd month from the children of Yisrael's departure from Mitzrayim, on the 6th day thereof, Yahuwah gave to Yisrael the 10 Devarim on Mount Sinai. And all Yisrael heard all the commandments, and all Yisrael rejoiced exceedingly in Yahuwah on that day. And the glory of Yahuwah rested upon the Mount Sinai, and he called to Moshe, and Moshe came in the midst of the cloud, and ascended the mountain. And Moshe was upon the mount 40 days and 40 nights. He ate no bread and drank no water, and Yahuwah instructed him in the commandments and the judgments in order to teach the children of Yisrael. And Yahuwah wrote the 10 Devarim, which he had commanded the children of Yisrael, upon 2 sapphire stones, which he gave to Moshe to command the children of Yisrael. And at the end of 40 days and 40 nights, when Yahuwah had finished speaking to Moshe on Mount Sinai, then Yahuwah gave to Moshe the sapphire stones written with the finger of Elohim. And when the children of Yisrael saw that Moshe tarried to come down from the mount, they gathered round Aharon and said, As for this man, Moshe, we know not what has become of him. Now therefore rise up, make unto us an Elohim, who shall go before us, so that you shall not die. And Aharon was greatly afraid of the people, and he ordered them to bring him gold, and he made it unto molten calf for the people. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, before he had come down from the mount, Get you down, for your people whom you did bring forth from Mitzrayim have corrupted themselves. They have made to themselves a molten calf, and have bowed down to it. Now therefore leave me, that I may consume them from off the earth, for they are a stiff-necked people. And Moshe besought the countenance of Yahuwah, and he prayed to Yahuwah for the people on account of the calf which they had made. And he afterwards descended from the mount, and in his hands were the 2 sapphire stones, which Elohim had given him to command Yisrael. And when Moshe approached the camp and saw the calf which the people had made, the anger of Moshe was kindled, and he broke the tablets under the mount. And Moshe came to the camp, and he took the calf and burned it with fire, and ground it until it became fine dust, and strewed it upon the water, and gave it to Yisrael to drink. And there died of the people by the swords of each other about 3,000 men who had made the calf. And on the morrow Moshe said to the people, I will go up to Yahuwah, Perchance I may make atonement for your sins which you have sinned to Yahweh. And Moshe again went up to Yahweh, and he remained with Yahweh 40 days and 40 nights. And during the 40 days did Moshe entreat Yahweh in behalf of the children of Yisrael, and Yahweh hearkened to the prayer of Moshe, and Yahweh was entreated of him in behalf of Yisrael. Then spoke Yahweh to Moshe to hew 2 stone tablets and to bring them up to Yahweh, who would write upon them the 10 Devarim. Now Moshe did so, and he came down and hewed the 2 tablets and went up to the Mount Sinai to Yahweh. And Yahweh wrote the 10 Devarim upon the tablets. And Moshe remained yet with Yahweh 40 days and 40 nights. And Yahweh instructed him in commandments and in judgments to impart to Yasharal. And Yahweh commanded him respecting the children of Yisrael, that they should make a sanctuary for Yahweh, that his name might rest therein. And Yahweh showed him the likeness of the sanctuary and the kindness, all its vessels. At the end of the 40 days, Moshe came down from the mount, and the 2 tablets were in his hand. And Moshe came to the children of Yisrael and spoke to them all the words of Yahuwah, and he taught them Torah, commandments, and judgments which Yahweh had taught him. And Moshe told the children of Yisrael the word of Yahuwah, that a sanctuary should be made for him to dwell amongst the children of Yisrael. And the people rejoiced greatly at all the good which Yahweh had spoken to them through Moshe. And they said, we will do all that Yahweh has spoken to you. And the people rose up like one man, and they made generous offerings to the sanctuary of Yahuwah, and each man brought the offering of Yahuwah for the work of the sanctuary, and for all its service. And all the children of Yisrael brought each man of all that was found in his possession for the work of the sanctuary of Yahuwah, gold, silver, and brass, and everything that was serviceable for the sanctuary. And all the wise men who were practiced in the work came and made the sanctuary of Yahuwah, according to all that Yahuwah had commanded. Every man in the work in which he had been practiced, and all the wise men in the heart made the sanctuary and its furniture and all the vessels for the holy service, as Yahuwah had commanded Moshe. And the work of the sanctuary of the tabernacle was completed at the end of 5 months. And the children of Yisrael did according to all that Yahuwah had commanded Moshe. And they brought the sanctuary and all its furniture to Moshe, like unto the representation which Yahweh had shown to Moshe, so did the children of Yisrael. And Moshe saw the work, and behold, they did it as Yahweh had commanded them. So Moshe blessed them. And in the 12th month, in the 23rd day of the month, Moshe took Aharon and his sons, and he dressed them in their garments, and anointed them, and did unto them as Yahweh had commanded him. And Moshe brought up all the offerings which Yahweh had on that day commanded him. Moshe afterward took Aharon and his sons, and said to them, for 7 days shall you remain at the door of the tabernacle, for thus I commanded. And Aharon and his sons did all that Yahweh had commanded them through Moshe, and they remained for 7 days at the door of the tabernacle. And on the 8th day, being the first day of the month, in the 2nd year from Yisrael's departure from Mitzrayim, Moshe erected the sanctuary, and Moshe put up all the furniture of the tabernacle and all the furniture of the sanctuary, and he did all Yahuwah had commanded him. And Moshe called to Aharon his son, and they brought the burnt offering and the sin offering for themselves and the children of Yisrael, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. On that day, the 2 sons of Aharon, Nadav and Avihu, took strange fire and brought it before Yahweh, who had not commanded them. And a fire went forth from before Yahweh and consumed them, and they died before Yahweh on that day. Then on the day when Moshe had completed to erect the sanctuary, the princes of the children of Yisrael began to bring their offerings before Yahweh for the dedication of the altar. And they brought up their offerings, each prince for 1 day, a prince each day for 12 days, and all the offerings which they brought, each man in his day, 1 silver charger, weighing 130 shekels, 1 silver bowl of 70 shekels, after the shekel of the sanctuary, both of them full of fine flour, mingled with oil for a meat offering. 1 spoon weighing 10 shekels of gold, full of incense, 1 young bullock, 1 ram, 1 lamb of the first year for a burnt offering, and 1 kid of the goats for a sin offering, and for a sacrifice of peace offering, 2 oxen, 5 ram, 5 he-goats, 5 lambs of a year old. Thus did the 12 princes of Yisrael, day by day, each man in his day. And it was after this, in the 13th day of the month, that Moshe commanded the children of Yisrael to observe the Pesach. And the children of Yisrael kept the Pesach in its season in the 14th day of the month, as Yahuwah had commanded Moshe. So did the children of Yisrael. And in the 2nd month, on the 1st day thereof, Yahuwah had spoken to Moshe, saying, Number the heads of all the males of the children of Yisrael, from 20 years old and upwards, and you and your brother Aharon, and the 12 princes of Yisrael. And Moshe did so, and Aharon came with the 12 princes of Yisrael, and they numbered the children of Yisrael in the wilderness of Sinai. And the numbers of the children of Yisrael by the houses of their fathers, from 20 years old and upward, were 603,550. But the children of Levi were not numbered amongst their brethren, the children of Yisrael. And the number of all the males of the children of Yisrael, from 1 month old and upward, was 22,273. And the number of the children of Levi from 1 month old and above was 22,000. And Moshe placed the priests and the Leviim, each man to his service and to his burden, to serve the sanctuary of the tabernacle, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. On the 20th day of the month, the cloud was taken away from the tabernacle of testimony. At that time, the children of Yisrael continued their journey from the wilderness of Sinai, and they took a journey of 3 days, and the cloud rested upon the wilderness of Paran. There, the anger of Yahweh was kindled against Yisrael, for they had provoked Yahweh in asking him for meat, that they might eat. And Yahuwah hearkened to their voice and gave them meat, which they ate for 1 month. But after this, the anger of Yahuwah was kindled against them, and he smote them with a great slaughter, and they were buried there in that place. And the children of Yisrael called that the place Kavrat Hat Ta'avah, because there they buried the people that lusted flesh. And they departed from Kivrat Hatta'avah and pitched in Hatzeroth, which is in the wilderness of Paran. And while the children of Yisrael were in Hatzeroth, the anger of Yahuwah was kindled against them, Marian, on account of Moshe, and she became leopardess, white as snow. And she was confined without the camp for 7 days until she had been received again after her leprosy. The children of Yisrael afterward departed from Kasroth and pitched in the end of the wilderness of Paran. At that time, Yahweh spoke to Moshe to send 12 men from the children of Yisrael, one man to a tribe, to go and explore the land of Canaan. And Moshe sent the 12 men, and they came to the land of Canaan to search and examine it. And they explored the whole land from the wilderness of Sion to Rechob, as you come to Chemoth, and at the end of 40 days they came to Moshe and Aharon, and they brought him word as it were in their hearts, and 10 of the men brought up an evil report to the children of Yisrael of the land which they had explored, saying, It is better for us to return to Mitzrayim than to go to this land, a land that consumes its inhabitants. But Yahusha, the son of Nun, and Caleb, the son of Yephuneh, who were of those that explored the land, said, The land is exceedingly good. If Yahuwah delight in us, then he will bring us to this land and give it to us, for it is a land flowing with milk and honey. But the children of Yisrael would not hearken to them, and they hearkened to the words of the 10 men who had brought up an evil report of the land. And Yahweh heard the murmurings of the children of Yisrael, and he was angry and swore, saying, Surely not one man of this wicked generation shall see the land from 20 years old and upward, excepting Caleb the son of Yephuneh and Yahusha the son of Nun. But surely this wicked generation shall perish in the wilderness, and their children shall come to the land that they shall possess it. So the anger of Yahweh was kindled against Yisrael, and he made them wander in the wilderness 40 years until the end of the wicked generation, because they did not follow Yahweh, and the people dwelt in the wilderness of Paran a long time. And they afterward proceeded to the wilderness by the way of the Red Sea. At that time, Korach, the son of Yester, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, took many men of the children of Yisrael, and they rose up and quarreled with Moshe and Aharon and the whole assembly. And Yahuwah was angry with them, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up with their houses and all belonging to them, and all the men belonging to Kurath. And after this, Elohim made the people go round by the way of Mount Seir for a long time. At that time, Yahuwah said to Moshe, Provoke not a war against the children of Esau, for I will not give to you of anything belonging to them, as much as the sole of the foot could tread upon, for I have given Mount Seir for an inheritance to Esau. Therefore did the children of Esau fight against the children of Seir in former times, and Yahuwah had delivered the children of Seir into the hands of the children of Esau, and destroyed them from before them, and the children of Esau dwelt in their stead unto this day. Therefore Yahuwah said to the children of Yisrael, Fight not against the children of Esau, your brethren, for nothing in their land belongs to you, but you may buy food of them for money and eat it, and you may buy water of them for money and drink it. And the children of Yisrael did according to the word of Yahuwah. And the children of Yisrael went about the wilderness, going round by the way of Mount Sinai for a long time, and touched not the children of Esau. And they continued in the district for 19 years. At that time died Latinus, king of the children of Kittim, in the 45th year of his reign, which is in the 40th year of the children of Yisrael's departure from Mitzrayim. And they buried him in his place, which he had built for himself in the land of Kittim, and Abanus reigned in his place for 38 years. And the children of Yisrael passed the boundaries of the children of Esau in those days at the end of the 19 years. And they came and passed the road of the wilderness of Moab. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, Besiege not Moab, and do not fight against them, for I will give you nothing of their land. And the children of Yisrael passed the road of the wilderness of Moab for 19 years, and they did not fight against them. And in the 36th year of the children of Yisrael's departing from Mitzrayim, Yahweh smote the heart of Sichon, king of Amorim, and he waged war and went forth to fight against the children of Moab. And Kichon sent messengers to Beor, the son of Inus, the son of Balaam, counselor to the king of Mitzrayim, and to Balaam his son, to curse Moab in order that it might be delivered into the hands of Kichon. And the messengers went and brought Beor, the son of Inus, and Balaam his sons from Pethor and Aram Naharaim. So Beor and Balaam his son came to the city of Kichon, and they cursed Moab and their king in the presence of Kichon, king of the Amorim. So Kichon went out with his whole army, and he went to Moab and fought against them, and he subdued them, and Yahweh delivered them into his hands. And Kichon slew the king of Moab, and Kichon took all the cities of Moab in the battle. He also took Heshbon from them, for Heshbon was one of the cities of Moab. And Kichon placed his princes and his nobles in Heshbon, and Heshbon belonged to Kichon in those days. Therefore, the parable speakers, Beor and Balaam, his son, uttered these words, saying, Come unto Heshbon, the city of Kichon will be built and established. Woe unto you, Moab, you are lost. O people of Chemosh, behold, it is written upon the cipher of the Torah of Elohim. And when Kichon had conquered Moab, he placed guards in the cities which he had taken from Moab, and considerable number of children of Moab fell in the battle in the hands of Kichon, and he made a great capture of them, sons and daughters, and he slew their king. So Kichon turned back to his own land, and Kichon gave numerous presents of silver and gold to Beor and Balaam his son, and he dismissed them, and they went to Aram Naharaim, to their home and country. At that time, all the children of Yisrael passed from the road of the wilderness of Moab and returned and surrounded the wilderness of Edom. So the whole assembly came into the wilderness of Sion in the first month of the 14th year from their past departure from Mitzrayim. And the children of Yisrael dwelt there in Kodesh of the wilderness of Sion, and Miriam died there, and she was buried there. At that time, Moshe sent messengers to Hadad, king of Edom, saying, Thus says your brother Yisrael, let me pass, I pray you, through your land. We will not pass through field or vineyard. We will not drink the water of the well. We will walk in the king's road. And Edom said to him, You shall not pass through my country. And Edom went forth to meet the children of Yisrael with a mighty people. And the children of Esau refused to let the children of Yisrael pass through their land. So Yisrael removed from them and fought not against them. For before this Yahuwah had commanded the children of Yisrael, saying, You shall not fight against the children of Esau. Therefore, Yisrael removed from them and did not fight against them. So the children of Yisrael departed from Kodesh, and all the people came to Mount Hor. At that time, Yahuwah said to Moshe, Tell your brother Aaron that he shall die there, for he shall not come to the land which I had given to the children of Yisrael. And Aharon went up at the command of Yahuwah to Mount Hor in the 40th year, in the 5th month, in the first day of the month. And Aharon was 123 years old when he died in Mount Hor.